I want you to stop whatever you were doing for just a second, and I want you to imagine something for me.
Okay.
Ask yourself a question that, sounds incredibly simple on the surface, but the deeper you go, the more it absolutely, breaks your brain.
I love these kinds of questions.
Right. So here's the question. What was the first song ever sung by a human being?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, that is like the ultimate cold case.
It really is. And, well, we are jumping into a deep dive today across a really fascinating stack of sources, primarily anchored by this conceptual breakdown. It's like a structural script pitch titled, Why Humans Invented Music Before Writing.
Which is such a massive topic.
Huge. And our mission today is to try and answer that seemingly impossible question, or, at least investigate why the answer is just so elusive. Because unlike writing, the first sounds created by humans they vanished into thin air.
Right.
We don't know who sang the first song. We don't know what landscape they were standing in. We don't know the melody. And the stark reality from our source material is that we may literally never know.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental physics of sound basically guarantee that we will never know.
It's kind of depressing.
It is. But to really grasp the magnitude of this mystery, we have to look at the decisive difference between a physical artifact, like early writing or painting, and an acoustic event.
The paradox of a song has always fascinated me, honestly. Because you can have this oral tradition, right? Like a lullaby or a folk song that survives for thousands of years.
Yeah, passed down word of mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Entirely sustained by fragile human memory. One person sings it to another across generations, yet the actual physical sound of that specific performance, like the literal kinetic energy moving through the air, it vanishes in seconds.
Right. The moment it's over, it's gone.
So if a medium is that ephemeral, and, music predates writing by millennia, tracking its origin feels like trying to study a ghost.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Because when we study human history, our entire timeline, like our whole understanding of human progress, is defined by permanence.
By stuff we can touch.
Exactly. We define the civilization by what it leaves behind in the dirt. We look at writing, and the sheer mechanics of writing are about fixing abstract thought into solid matter.
Taking it out of your head and putting it in the real world.
Yes. You are taking a concept from your brain and anchoring it to physical reality. You carve a symbol into a stone tablet, or you press a stylus into wet clay, or, you drag pigment across a cave wall.
And because it is physical, it survives.
Right. It can survive the biological death of the person who created it.
You are basically leaving a receipt for future generations to find.
A receipt, yeah. But music operates in direct opposition to that. It is an invisible, totally temporary manipulation of the environment.
It's just air.
Literally. Think about what a sound wave actually is. It is just a localized fluctuation in air pressure.
Right.
A human voice vibrating, or a rhythm clapped out by hands, it pushes air molecules together and pulls them apart.
So it's just kinetic energy.
Exactly. That energy travels outward, it hits an eardrum, and then it literally just dissipates into heat. Once the air settles back to its resting state, the evidence of that creation is erased from the universe forever.
That raises a really haunting question, and I want you listening to really chew on this for a second. If a prehistoric community, somewhere deep in the Pleistocene, creates the most complex, emotionally devastating symphony of voices and rhythms.
It's like an absolute masterpiece of human expression.
Right, a total masterpiece. But they have no way to physically record it. Does it leave any footprint on the earth at all?
In terms of the archaeological record, absolutely none.
None at all.
Zero. And this is the immense, agonizing difficulty that archaeologists face when they attempt to study the origins of music.
Because you can't dig it up.
You can't. We can dig up their stone tools. We can examine the fossilized bones of the animals they hunted. We can analyze the structural ruins of their shelters. But because you cannot excavate a sound wave, the physical evidence for music is just incredibly sparse.
So if the music itself is gone, our instinct, naturally, is to look for the tools used to make it, right?
We want the instrument.
We want to find the instrument. But our source material is actually highly critical of the standard approach to this search. There is a huge demand for rigorous scientific caution here that I think a lot of, enthusiastic historians tend to just ignore.
Oh, absolutely. It comes down to human nature, I think. We want to romanticize the past.
Right.
And we are desperate to find an origin story. So
Yeah.
The classic scenario is, an archaeologist is digging in a cave and they find a prehistoric animal bone.
Like a cave bear femur or something.
Exactly. The femur of a cave bear or a hollowed out bird bone, and it has a hole in it.
Right.
or perhaps like 2 holes spaced apart.
And instantly the press release goes out.
Oh, immediately.
We see the headlines declaring world's oldest flute discovered. But wait, I have to challenge this whole narrative because when I read this part of the source, it made me question literally everything I've seen in museums.
It's eye-opening for sure.
Aren't we just like projecting our modern reality onto these ancient artifacts? Because if I find a bone with a hole in it, my brain screams flute because I know what a flute is.
Exactly. You already have the concept of a flute.
Right. But couldn't that hole just be the result of a wolf chewing on it?
Yes. And that is the exact trap the source warns about. The scientific methodology requires us to strictly avoid working backward from the present.
Which is so hard to do.
It's very hard. But you cannot take a modern understanding of acoustics, look at a random piece of debris from 50,000 years ago, and assume they share the same purpose just because the shape is vaguely similar.
Because it could be anything, right? It could be bacterial decay or a tool they use to extract marrow.
Or something they use to thread a woven rope.
Oh, interesting.
Right, there are dozens of non-musical explanations. The burden of proof in taphonomy, which is the study of how organisms decay and become fossilized, it's immense.
You really have to prove it.
You have to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the hole was made intentionally by a human hand using a tool.
Not an animal tooth.
Right. And then you have to prove it was made specifically to manipulate sound rather than for drainage or marrow extraction or wearing as jewelry.
How do you even prove that?
That requires microscopic analysis of the tool marks around the hole. You're looking for specific wear patterns that indicate lips or fingers covering it repeatedly over time.
Wow.
Yeah, so a hole in a bone without that extremely rigorous proof is just a hole.
It's just a hole. So if the physical record is this compromised, and we can't rely on finding an undeniable, perfectly preserved prehistoric drum buried in the dirt, we have to completely shift our perspective.
We have to look elsewhere.
Right. We have to stop looking at external technology and look at the one instrument we know, for an absolute fact, every single prehistoric human carried with them.
The human body. The original fully self-contained acoustic device.
Yes. The sheer physicality of early sound making is something we completely take for granted today.
We really do.
We get so caught up looking for carved flutes that we forget that long before anyone ever picked up a piece of bone with the intent to carve it, the human body was already capable of producing this astonishing variety of rhythms and melodies.
I mean, consider the anatomy involved. The vocal tract alone is an evolutionary marvel.
Just the mechanics of it.
Yeah. The position of the human larynx is actually lower in the throat compared to other primates.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that significantly expands the range of sounds we can produce. It gives us a massive resonant chamber. Then you have the diaphragm controlling the breath, the tongue and lips shaping the sound.
It's a whole system.
Yes. And that's just the melody section.
Right. The rhythm section is the rest of the body. You have hands for clapping, you have feet for stomping.
Exactly.
You have the chest cavity, which, produces a really deep resonant thud when you strike it.
And the acoustic properties change entirely depending on how you use those tools.
What do you mean?
Well, a hollow, cupped hand striking the chest sounds entirely different from a flat palm striking the thigh.
Oh, sure.
And the rhythmic potential of feet stomping varies wildly depending on the ground surface. Are they on compacted dirt, hollow wood, shallow water, solid stone?
It instantly makes me think of the mechanics of modern beatboxing.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. If you've ever watched a really skilled beatboxer up close, it almost defies logic.
Right.
They are generating heavy bass drops, sharp snare drums, hi-hats, and melodic synths simultaneously.
All at the same time.
Yes. And they are doing this using nothing but their vocal cords, their lips, their tongue, and just rapid control of their breath.
It's incredible.
It is. Or, even on a much simpler level, think of a child instinctively clapping their hands to get attention, or someone unconsciously stomping their foot while waiting for a bus.
It's just built into us.
It is the most raw, immediate form of expression, and it requires absolute zero external technology. You don't have to stretch an animal skin over a hollow log, you just have to exist.
And framing it that way reminds us that music wasn't some piece of technology that was suddenly invented out of thin air one day.
Like a light bulb.
Right. It wasn't a gadget. It was a biological extension of our physical existence.
Yeah.
But we have to remember, a human body doesn't just make noise in a vacuum.
Right.
To understand why early humans started using their bodies to make intentional noise, we really have to look at the environment they were reacting to.
Which shatters another massive misconception for me, because I am totally guilty of imagining the ancient past as this serene, quiet place.
Like a nature documentary with the sound turned down.
Yes, exactly like a silent movie or one of those museum dioramas where everything is perfectly still.
Hmm.
But based on the source material, the prehistoric soundscape was absolutely chaotic.
It was overwhelmingly loud. It was a
Right.
world completely saturated with sound.
I can't even imagine.
Well, based strictly on the elements outlined in our source, we have to construct this vivid psychoacoustic picture of the daily life of an early human. They were immersed in a landscape dominated by animals.
So, like the calls of predators.
The calls of predators, the alarm cries of prey, the rustling of massive herds moving through the brush.
And they lived entirely at the mercy of the elements, too.
Completely. The howling of the wind, the rushing of water.
The terrifying, bone-rattling crack of thunder.
Oh, thunder would have been awe-inspiring. And the rhythmic, snapping crackle of a fire, which, they relied on for warmth and survival.
Right, they were always near a fire.
Plus the sharp, percussive clack of stone striking stone as they manufactured tools. And overlapping all of this, the vocalizations of their fellow humans.
I want you to put yourself in that environment for a second listening to this. Just imagine standing in a prehistoric forest at night.
It's intense to think about.
There's no ambient light pollution from a city. There is no hum from a refrigerator, no distant sound of an airplane overhead. It is pitch black.
Pure darkness.
And in that darkness, your visual cortex is basically useless. Your primary sense for survival instantly shifts to your hearing.
The auditory cortex just takes over completely. Humans were listeners long before they were musicians, because listening was a literal matter of life and death.
You had to listen to survive.
Exactly. The brain had to constantly analyze, categorize, and react to a relentless, endless stream of audio data.
So if you hear a twig snap in the dark, your brain has to instantly decode the source. Is the frequency and the weight of that snap a deer, which means a potential food source? Or is it a predator, which means you are the food source?
The stakes couldn't be higher.
Right. A low rumble in the distance. Is that a thunderstorm rolling in, meaning you need to find shelter immediately? Or is it a herd of bison moving across the plains?
This creates an environment of intense sensory processing. The prehistoric brain is filtering noise from signal every waking second of the day.
So the vital question becomes, how does a human mind, swimming in this terrifying ocean of random noise, make the leap from just desperately listening for danger to actively producing its own structured sound?
That is the core of it.
Because surviving a noisy world demands acute hearing. But as our source explicitly notes, hearing is a fundamentally different cognitive process than creating music.
Yes. This is the massive cognitive leap. Distinguishing between a natural sound and an intentional human creation is the crux of this entire deep dive.
It's the turning point.
It is, because nature is already full of rhythm, the heartbeat, the cycle of seasons, the crashing of waves on a shoreline, and the animal kingdom is full of complex vocalizations.
Right, like whales.
Whales communicate over vast distances. Wolves howl to coordinate the pack.
Yeah.
Birds produce incredibly intricate songs.
Right, so let's pause there, because if a bird is singing a complex melody, why doesn't that count as music? They are making structured sound, right?
They are, but the difference lies in intent and abstract cognition. A bird song is largely instinctual.
It's hardwired.
Exactly. It is a biological program being executed to defend a territory or attract a mate. The bird is not experimenting with the acoustic environment for aesthetic pleasure.
The bird isn't jamming.
The bird is definitely not jamming. Nor is it pulling abstract inspiration from the sound of the wind and incorporating that into its song. Humans did something entirely unprecedented.
And the text gives us 4 specific cognitive verbs that map this leap, right?
Yes. Remember, reproduce, alter, and repeat.
Remember, reproduce, alter, and repeat. Let's dig into the mechanics of that, because that is a massive shift in brain function.
It really is. It starts with working memory. A human hears a sound in the environment, perhaps the specific call of a bird or the rhythm of water dripping in a cave.
Okay.
The first step is the ability to actually remember that sound. The human brain has to hold that specific auditory sequence in its working memory, separating it from all the chaotic background noise.
So you are basically taking an invisible, fleeting event and trapping it inside your mind.
Exactly.
Wow.
Then comes the motor control. The human uses their own vocal cords of their hands to reproduce that sound.
They mimic it.
They mimic the frequency or the rhythm. But, and this is key, mimicking is still just a survival tool. It's useful for hunting or signaling. The true leap into creation happens with the third verb, alter.
That is the creative spark, the what if.
Yes, the human decides to manipulate the sound. They change the pitch, they slow down the tempo, they change the timbre by maybe cupping their hands over their mouth.
To start playing with it.
Exactly. They are no longer just reacting to their environment, they are imposing their will upon it. And finally, they repeat it. They intentionally choose to make this altered sound again and again, establishing a deliberate pattern.
When you lay it out like that, step by step, it requires an astounding level of abstract thought.
It's highly advanced.
You are absorbing an invisible medium, holding it in your neurological hardware, reshaping it to your liking, and pushing it back out into the physical world.
You're acting as a conduit.
It is the transition from being a passive subject of the soundscape to becoming an active architect of it.
And once humans develop the cognitive capacity to intentionally manipulate sound like that, they unlocked the foundational building blocks of music.
A source refers to these as the first musical ingredients. And the text gives us a very strict warning here, which I think is crucial for us to mention. We cannot call this the origin of music.
The distinction is vital. We are not talking about the invention of the song here.
Right.
We are talking about the conditions that had to be met in the human brain for music to even be a possibility. It is the underlying architecture.
It's like having flour, water, and yeast. You don't have a loaf of bread yet, but you have the biochemical components that make bread possible.
That's a great way to think about it.
So the source lists these ingredients as repetition, rhythm, variation, pattern, and timing.
Right. The core of this section focuses entirely on how humans recognize and manipulate the relationship between sound and time.
Because music needs time.
Fundamentally, music is sound organized in time. The text unpacks this using 4 conceptual pillars. Same, different again, and next.
Imposing order on chaos. Because in the prehistoric soundscape we were just talking about, sound is mostly chaotic.
Totally random.
A rock falling down a cliffside is a random, isolated acoustic event. But when a human decides to clap their hands twice, pause for 1 second and clap twice again, they are suddenly introducing structure.
They are establishing rules. The human is communicating that this sound is the same as the last sound.
Right.
But if they follow it by stomping their foot, that sound is different. By looping the sequence, they are doing it again. This creates a pattern.
And the concept of pattern leads to the most fascinating ingredient of all, in my opinion. The concept of next. Anticipation.
Anticipation is huge.
I was really trying to visualize this process, like how we map patterns onto time. Think about looking at a painting or laying stones in a row on the ground.
Okay, spatial patterns.
Right. You place a white stone, then a black stone, then a white, then a black. Because it is spatial, you can see the entire pattern at once.
You can take it all in one glance.
Exactly. You know when one stone is different from the same stones around it? If I hand you a white stone, your brain instantly knows where the next one belongs in the sequence.
Because spatial patterns are easy for the brain to decode.
Oh.
Information is static, it's just sitting there. But time is a much more difficult canvas.
Exactly. Time unfolds linearly. You can't look at a rhythm all at once.
You can't.
You have to hold the previous beats in your memory while simultaneously experiencing the current beat in order to understand the overall pattern.
It's a juggling act for the brain.
It is. And early humans managed to map that visual, spatial concept of a pattern directly onto the invisible flow of time. They could hear a beat clap, pause, and their neurological hardware would start to anticipate the next beat before the sound even physically occurred.
They could feel it coming.
They could feel the silent space where the sound was supposed to land.
And the neuroscience behind that anticipation is essentially the engine of rhythm.
What happens in the brain?
Well, when your brain successfully decodes a pattern in time and correctly anticipates the next beat, it releases a microdose of dopamine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that feeling of knowing what comes next, waiting for it to arrive and having your prediction validated is incredibly rewarding to the human nervous system.
It feels good.
It feels really good. It's the exact reason why a beat dropping in a modern song makes you physically tap your foot or nod your head. Your body is reacting to the anticipation and the resolution of a temporal pattern.
So if we picture a prehistoric human standing alone by a fire, they are clapping their hands, they are altering the sound, they are anticipating the next beat, they are experiencing that dopamine loop.
Yeah.
Does that make them the first musician?
According to the source material, absolutely not.
Okay, this is where it gets crazy.
This is the point where the text forces us to aggressively dismantle our modern preconceptions about what music actually is. The concept of the first musician is a total myth.
This part of the source requires a massive paradigm shift. We have to strip away centuries of cultural baggage.
We really do. In the prehistoric era, there were no specialized professions. There was no one whose sole job was to sing.
No pop stars.
No pop stars, no bards. There were no stages separating a performer from an audience. There were no passive audiences sitting quietly to consume a performance.
Right.
And most importantly, there were no composed works. The idea of a song as a finished object, something that has a defined beginning and end, simply did not exist.
I really want you listening to reflect on how deeply ingrained our modern view of music is.
Oh.
Because we live in a world governed by Spotify algorithms, massive stadium concert tours, copyright law, intellectual property.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
It is. We view music almost exclusively as a noun. It is a product. It is a physical or digital artifact that you can buy, own, and trade. We have entirely commodified sound.
We treat it as an object you can put on a shelf or in a playlist. But for the vast, overwhelming majority of human history, music was not a noun.
It is a verb.
It was a verb. It was an action, a behavior completely devoid of ownership.
No one in the Pleistocene stood up and said, hey, I just wrote this rhythm. I own the rights to it. Nobody else can clap this.
Exactly. The idea of a solitary genius sitting on a hilltop, inventing the first song and then performing it for others, is a modern capitalist framework projected backward onto ancient biology.
It just didn't happen that way.
It didn't. In reality, someone engaged in a task, perhaps processing animal hides or grinding seeds, might establish a rhythm to make the physical labor easier.
Like a work song.
Exactly.
Yep.
Someone nearby hears it. They imitate the rhythm, maybe adding a variation with their own tools. The action is shared and repeated. It was a communal behavior, much closer to social grooming or language than to a modern performance.
If music was inherently an act of imitation and shared repetition, it means it was fundamentally a multiplayer experience.
Always multiplayer.
Which brings us to the ultimate, lingering question of the source material. It's the climax of the argument, really, and it transitions us into the deeper implications of human evolution.
It's the biggest question of all.
A human being is perfectly capable of making a complex sound entirely alone. I can sit in a room by myself and clap a polyrhythm for hours. I don't need anyone else to do it. So why did early humans choose to share it?
This pushes us past the physics of sound, past the cognitive biology of memory, straight into the realm of sociology and evolutionary survival.
The text leaves us grappling with these really profound questions.
It does. Why make a sound that another human being could join? Why repeat a rhythm together?
Why synchronize?
Why synchronize? That is the fulcrum of the whole mystery. If the origin of music isn't about individual artistic expression, but about communal connection, it changes the entire narrative.
It reframes everything.
The mystery isn't where music came from. We know it came from the anatomy of the body and the cognitive ability to map patterns onto time. The hardware was already running. The real mystery is why humans began making sound together.
Right. Why did they join in?
Why did two isolated minds decide to match their physical movements and their breath in perfect time? Well, when you look at the evolutionary pressures on early humans, synchronization is an incredibly powerful survival mechanism.
How so?
When a group of humans synchronizes their bodies, when they march in time, when they strike stones in rhythm, when they chant a repetitive vocalization together, profound physiological changes occur.
Their biometrics actually align, right?
Yes. Their breathing rates synchronize. Their heart rates can actually sync up.
That is wild.
It's incredible biology. The physical act of moving and vocalizing in unison stimulates the vagus nerve and triggers the release of oxytocin and endorphins.
The bonding chemicals.
Exactly, the bonding chemicals.
Yeah.
While simultaneously lowering cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, so it artificially induces a deep neurochemical sense of trust, social bonding, and belonging to the group.
It's like hacking the nervous system.
It absolutely is. It dissolves the boundary of the individual ego and replaces it with a collective identity.
Which solves a massive evolutionary problem, because in a brutal, dangerous prehistoric world, a fragmented group of individuals looking out only for themselves will quickly perish.
They wouldn't last a week.
Right. But a unified group, bound together by absolute trust and shared purpose, survives.
By synchronizing, they were signaling absolute cooperation. It was a way to bind the tribe together through shared time and shared action.
It raises a fascinating chicken and egg question, honestly.
What's that?
Was music simply a byproduct of our growing need for complex socialization? Or was the act of synchronized sound the very tool we invented to make that complex society possible in the first place?
Oh, that's a brilliant way to frame it. Was it the byproduct or the catalyst?
Right. If synchronized sound is what allowed us to trust each other enough to build societies, then music is quite literally the foundation of human civilization.
It's not just a nice thing to have, it's the glue that holds us together.
Let's pull all of these threads together because this text has taken us on a massive journey.
It forces a complete reevaluation of how we view the timeline of human culture.
It really does. We started with a seemingly impossible archaeological mission, right? Trying to find the origin of a sound that vanished into thin air tens of thousands of years before the first word was ever written down.
And we recognized the physical limitations of the dirt.
Right, and the intense scientific rigor required to look past our own romantic projections of bone flutes. We can't just assume a hole in a bone is a musical instrument.
Which led us to the human body as the original sophisticated synthesizer, capable of immense acoustic variety.
From there, we explored the chaotic, terrifying sensory overload of the prehistoric soundscape, where hearing was strictly a mechanism for survival.
We walked through the monumental cognitive leap required to stop passively listening and start actively creating.
The ability of the human mind to remember a sound, reproduce it, alter it, and repeat it.
And the genius of imposing the rules of same and next onto the invisible flow of time, creating that dopamine loop of anticipation.
And ultimately, we tore down the modern myth of the solitary musician. We realized that music was not invented as a product to be consumed.
It wasn't a noun.
It was a verb. It evolved as a shared behavioral adaptation, a tool for synchronization that bridged the gap between vulnerable individual biology and cohesive group culture.
It fundamentally rewrites the story of who we are as a species.
It does. And I want to leave you, listening to this, with one final thought to mull over the next time you find yourself surrounded by sound.
Oh, I love this part.
Think about the last time you were in a massive crowd. Maybe it was a tense, high-stakes sports stadium, or a packed, sold-out concert arena, or even a massive protest moving through the streets.
Just a sea of people.
Right. Suddenly, without anyone directing it from a podium, the entire crowd starts chanting the exact same phrase or clapping their hands in perfect unison. Boom, boom.
It just happens organically.
It does, and you know that specific electric feeling in your chest. That physical sensation where the hair on your arm stands up, your own thoughts quiet down, and you suddenly feel like you are just one cell inside a single, giant, breathing organism.
It is an overwhelming, undeniable biological response. It bypasses our modern intellect entirely.
It is pure biology, so ask yourself this. If the original spark of music wasn't a solo performance to be admired, if it was just the sheer raw act of two early humans deciding to synchronize their bodies, match their breath, and face the terrifying darkness together, could it be that our deep, undeniable craving for music today is actually just our ancient biological craving for each other?
That is exactly the perspective to carry with you the next time you hear a rhythm.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll be back next time with another stack of sources to explore.